Spotlight, Spotlight with Jerome. Sit down, the show's starting.
Welcome to the second edition of Spotlight with Jerome. I had the absolute pleasure to meet up with a magician, a wizard. He is the man behind the fantastic Task Magic, the cool Textivate, the fabulous TeachVid, and the amazing Sentence Builders. And it is the fabulous Martin Lapworth. Hope you enjoy the interview.
I was just somebody who was into French as a kid. I'm not from a family that's I've not got bilingual parents or parents of different nationalities or anything. I liked French at school. I did quite well at it. I ended up going to university and doing a degree that included French. And then, having completed that degree, I went and lived in Gran Canaria without a word of Spanish, and picked up a reasonable level of Spanish while I was living there. I was teaching English as a foreign language in Gran Canaria. Well, to be honest, I was at a bit of a loose end, and I had a friend who was working out there teaching English as a foreign language. And he contacted me and said, Martin, there's 2 jobs going in Las Palmas if you're interested. So myself and my now wife, Corinne, decided to jump at the chance and go over to Las Palmas. And we spent 3 years there teaching English as a foreign language. And while we were there, we had twins.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of encouraged us to get back to the UK and maybe retrain and get a proper job rather than teaching EFL in private schools in Las Palmas.
Okay.
So then we came back to the UK and we did PGCEs, and we began teaching French primarily, with a little bit of Spanish, with the Spanish that we learned from Las Palmas.
Of course, yeah.
And we ended up back in Spain a few years later as a result of the success of Task Magic, because it basically meant that I could do my work wherever I fancied. So we decided to come and live in Spain just because we like the Spanish way of life, and the climate so much better. Well, to be honest, I haven't got a programming background at all. I mean, when I was at school, I was a bit of a nerdy kind of teenager who liked a bit of programming in BASIC, but we're talking the mid-80s here, so that it wasn't anything particularly fantastic, but it's something I always enjoyed. And then when in my second teaching job, I had a lot of computer suites. There was a lot of interest in using IT and lessons and so on, but we didn't really have anything for languages. And I remember looking into it and looking at the kinds of resources we could buy in, CD-ROMs is basically what there was at the time. This is around 2000. And there wasn't really, I mean, the internet existed, but it wasn't the internet that it is today. And there was nowhere near the same kind of content on there, and the reliability wasn't as good, and the connection wasn't as good. So things tended to be CD-ROM based. And when I looked into the availability of CD-ROMs for our classes in the school where I was working, we taught year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 French and German, and Spanish to I think year 10 by the time I was there. It was moving up through the school. And this was at a time when to buy a CD-ROM typically cost like £200 for one language, for the content, something that will cover the content of 1 year's worth. So if you've got all those different years and languages that you're trying to provide for, then you spend an absolute fortune buying in CD-ROMs, even if they existed, So the only kind of thing that there was really available at the time were things like, there was Fun with Texts, which was
I remember that, yes,
a popular piece of software from the late great Graham Davis. And then there were a couple of online things such as Hot Potatoes, which is still going strong. People are still using it for all kinds of web-based content. And another web-based thing was something called Kia, which I think is still around as well. So I'd started looking into experimenting with Hot Potatoes in particular to build content on the school's intranet, because you could have offline web pages that you could access via the internet. And as I was doing this, it just occurred to me that there wasn't really anything out there that allowed people to put in their content. Initially, it was matching vocab items. So the idea of putting in a list of English to French matching vocab items, and instead of that generating one activity, something that would make it generate a dozen activities. And so I started looking around and realized nothing existed to do this. And so I came up with this idea that, I'd like to write my own version. I spoke to a few people who had a background in programming, and they weren't interested in helping me. So I bought myself a How to Program Visual Basic book and did it myself.
Fantastic. That's very impressive.
So I did it while I was teaching. So the Taskmaster, as it was originally called, which was a far better name than Task Magic, I think, because it's the idea that it's encouraging people to, pushing people to work hard. Taskmaster started, I think it was in 2000 or 2001, and it was just a small program that I was using in my teaching, and then started telling other people about, and people started buying it. And then because of an intellectual property dispute over the name, I ended up changing it to Task Magic. Well, let's think. I mean, Textivate was a development from Task Magic. I tried to make as much of Task Magic as it existed, because Task Magic was broken down into text match, picture match, sound match, mix. There was these various groups that all did slightly different things. And what I wanted to do was try and bring that all together into one tool where you could put any kind of content into your file. And it doesn't quite fulfill that in terms of, it doesn't quite do all the gamey stuff that Task Magic does. And it doesn't quite allow you to combine all the same things in the way that Task Magic does, but in a way it does a lot more besides. And because it's web-based, it has a lot more flexibility. And the reason that I wanted to work with kind of the concepts behind Textivate, it's all to do with text reconstruction. And for me, that's the thought process that go into putting blocks of text together, or filling gaps in text, or filling, typing the missing words or typing missing letters. That's it's kind of a combination of the input that you're looking at while you're doing the activity, and then there's kind of the thinking about structure, and so there's an output element to it as well. So I think it's for me, pedagogically, it makes perfect sense. So Textivate was a natural development from Task Magic, and then TeachVid, to be honest, was an idea that initially I was going to add on to Textivate. Textivate, I'd recently, not long before coming up with the idea for TeachVid, I had added video capability to Textivate. So you can have a situation where you can have a kind of part of the screen is showing a YouTube video, and then the other part is your text reconstruction activity and so on. But the thing that I thought was limiting was that you constantly had to keep pausing the video, and so that you could then do your bit of the activity, and then once you filled it in and it was okay, you could go back and play the video again. And I thought it'd be nice to have something that kind of made that way more automatic, and so that the video would only play the bit that you're working on currently, and then as soon as it's correct, it will automatically play the next bit of video. Where the idea for TeachVid came about, and obviously the video and the interactive activity, but combined also with a parallel text. So TeachVid resources, nearly all of them, especially the best ones, have got a parallel English text as well. So that as the student is, for example, they're listening to a bit of video, a sentence in French or Spanish or German, whatever it may be, and then they're looking at their L1, so their mother tongue translation of that, so that they know what is being said, what the meaning is of what's being said, and then they're having to interact in some way with a piece of L2 text, so the French or the Spanish or German, whatever, whether it's putting the words in order or filling in gaps or typing it out, so it's like a dictation. That was the kind of the whole idea behind TeachVid. And I decided not to add it to Textivate, just because in order to do that, I'd have to totally redevelop Textivate. And so I thought I'd start afresh with something new. So the sentence builders, well, to be honest, the same thing happened in that as I was adding more and more functionality to Textivate, so there was the idea of adding the video, which became TeachVid. But around the same time that I came up with the idea for the adding video to Textivate, which would then become TeachVid, I was toying with the idea of having different ways of presenting of introducing your text, so that instead of it being something where you put a text in and it breaks it up, or you putting a list of items in and it makes activities out of those, I was thinking of the idea of putting things into substitution tables, as I knew them at the time, before people started talking about
sentence builders.
And using a substitution table as a way of generating the content, which would then be used with all those Textivate activities. And that was honestly the way it first came about. And it became sentence builders because I've been chatting with Gianfranco Conti for quite a while about various things, because we're in the GILT,
yes, yeah,
Global Innovative Language Teachers.
15,000 members now. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, yeah. So I'm one of the admins on that group, along with Dylan and Gianfranco. And anyway, I've been chatting with Gianfranco about various things, and he started mentioning sentence builders, and I said, "Oh, have you been looking at what I've been working on?" Because it's strange, because I'd started working on the idea for a sentence builders constructor, so that you could put content into a sentence builder and it would then generate all these sentences in the two languages. And so we got talking, and we said, we really must do a website together. Let's do this. And so he was all for it, and I was all for it. But the only stumbling block was that I started developing TeachVid, and that had to be finished and launched and got out of the way first before I could even think about working on a new website. So that took a few years, but we eventually came back to it. By which time, of course, Gianfranco had relaunched the language gym and was already very involved in the language gym and his speaking tours and all the rest of it. So he ended up bringing in his partners from the language gym, Dylan and Ronan, and it's been a great collaboration. Textivate. I mean, I'm people who are members of the Textivate Teachers Facebook group will know from things I've said on there that I'm guilty of not having developed that very much at all over the last few years, and basically it's just ticking along. If anything goes wrong, I fix it, but generally it's just there as a service that people can use, and I respond to people's requests for help with various things. And that's just me running that entirely. TeachVid I developed with my son, who's much more of an IT expert than I am. He grew up both my children grew up here in Spain, and they're completely bilingual, English and Spanish, and they've gone to university here. And my son's done a degree in IT engineering, and so he now works in all kinds of website development and that kind of thing. So he developed TeachVid with me. So that was the first time that I worked with anybody else, to be honest, because prior to then I'd always worked entirely by myself. And obviously, because he's so much better at the programming side and all the IT knowledge and so on, a lot of the stuff that I learned with the look and feel of TeachVid rubbed off on sentence builders. So it was a good learning experience for me as well. Sentence builders I did completely by myself. I said I haven't been developing Textivate. I'd like to. I keep saying, okay, Textivate is due a major overhaul, a major rewrite, and I keep promising that, and I keep letting people down with that on that promise. But I do intend to, maybe this year, next year, at some point. I want to sort of rewrite it and make it much more sentence builders like in its styling, but retain all the same functionality that people know and love about it. And TeachVid I'd like to make some improvements to as well, but it's kind of on the back burner at the minute because I've got other things on and my son's got other things on, but hopefully we'll develop that further as well.
Of course, yeah, it's busy, isn't it? If you have to be looking after all these things, I suppose you probably spend a bit more time on the new one on sentence builders, because you've been creating lots of different things that it's been going on very quickly, and more facilities are coming, more things are coming day in, day out, really.
But that's the thing. I get to the point where I think, oh, that's it now. I can put that to the side now and turn attention back to Textivate. And I don't know why I ever thought that, because it seems like every few days there's a new idea or a new suggestion or a new thing, a new feature that either one of the team asks for, or one of the customers asks for, or an idea that comes to myself. And so, yeah, I've got a long to-do list of things to do just on sentence builders. So bit by bit, I'll work my way through those, and hopefully I will at some point turn my attention to Textivate for all those people who still use it, because it is such a good tool as well. And the same with TeachVid. I mean, yeah, there's nothing else. I'd like to think that Textivate is unique in what it does, and so is TeachVid. And I think we can say the same about sentence builders too. I know that there are people who are sort of trying to create content that uses the concept of sentence builders, but I think as it stands at the moment, it's a fairly
it's absolutely unique. It's amazing that the fact that you can build your own sentence builders. It's about, and it's automatic, and it's just absolutely amazing. Yeah.
That's been one of the biggest challenges, to be honest, because when the whole idea was conceived, and one of the reasons I didn't put it in Textivate was partly because I discussed it with Jan and Jan Franco, and we talked about doing this thing together, but also because I realized how complex it was to create the sentence builders so that they produced accurate language and so on. And so the initial idea was that there wouldn't be any user-generated content at all on sentence builders. It was just going to be a vehicle for content from the Language Gym books and various other places with ready-made sentence builders. And then I think a few weeks prior to launch, last April time, I decided to experiment with the idea of a simplified version of the sentence builders. And so initially they were just column based, and you couldn't set any exclusions or do any transformations or anything fancy like that. And that's the way it was for the first, I can't remember how many months actually, but quite a while. And but it's because I've then added this new functionality to allow people to create their own complex sentence builders, that adds all kinds of extra work behind the scenes, because it's a very different proposition creating a website of content that people consume to creating something, especially something so complex, where it has to be able to deal with what anybody puts into it. But talking about the programming, that's the bit of my job that I now like the most.
Is it really, was it spending time just
having a challenge and thinking, well, how can I do this, and then sitting down and working out the best way to do it, and then producing it, and that's a real sense of fulfillment, and
it's a real passion,
achievement. Yeah, definitely. But there is all new subscribers on TeachVid get a trial if they subscribe, if you know what I mean. So you put in your subscription details as if you're going to subscribe to it, whether it's on a monthly plan or a yearly plan.
Okay.
If you don't cancel after the first month, which is free, then that subscription
I understand. Yeah. Okay.
goes into force, and you get charged. Textivate, there isn't any official way of requesting a trial, but if people ask me nicely, I'll usually give them a couple of weeks to try it out via the contact link on the website. And Sentence Builders has got a contact button as well, and there's on the homepage there's a link there where people can click it to request a trial, and we give people a 7-day trial. Follow the Twitter accounts. So you've got @Textivate, you've got @teach_vid, and you've got @sentencebuilders with the DRS instead of DERS at the end.
All right.
Sentence Builders, the Twitter name, by the way. If people think I've just done that to try and be cool, to make it look like Flickr or something like that, it's nothing to do with that. It's because Sentence Builders with the E in it is too long for a Twitter handle. So I had to remove a letter, so that was the one that went the E before the RS. So
it works out well.
Yeah, it turned out great.
That's perfect.
Oh, TaskMagic. That's so long ago. I think I just made something that looked nice. Initially, the iron TaskMagic was a magic wand with a star over it, and so that's all that was. And there wasn't really any logo apart from the name as it was written on the front of the software. Textivate, there wasn't really a logo for that either for a long time. It was just the word Textivate, and then I think I started to take on board a lot of the criticisms about how bad it looked and started to improve things. And so what you see now is actually a big improvement on how it started.
Okay.
And it was just the Textivate logo. It's kind of like some square boxes with white and yellow in it, and it's just to reflect to give some of the idea of what you experience on screen when you're doing Textivate activities.
Okay.
Moving boxes around or clicking things or whatever, something that reflected the fact that it was YouTube videos, but also an idea of playing around with puzzles and games. And so I think the TeachVid logo is kind of like a hybrid jigsaw puzzle along with sort of a stylized YouTube kind of playbook. And Centers Builders was, I don't know, that just came to me.
Just that
squares as blocks, and then I put some more squares into them to make it look a bit like an SB when you look at it in a certain way. Well, I'm going to give a similar answer to Gianfranco. I like to go for a walk. So I try to go for a walk every day. It's good for you, good for your health, good for your heart, good for the mind as well, to be away from the computer, away from the office, and get out in the open air. And obviously one of the benefits of living in Spain is you can do that in the sunshine quite regularly. And yeah, that's definitely the way I relax, by getting out and going for a good walk.
Fantastic. And while I was spying on you when I was watching Joe Dell's YouTube video, and I could see some guitars behind. Do you play an instrument? Do you play guitar?
I used to play the guitar quite a lot when I was like in my student days, and like and then it's one of those things where you can get really into it for a long time, and then you put it to one side and you forget about it. And I haven't touched my guitars for, honestly, they're on the wall behind me now. There's an electric guitar and
Sure, okay.
Where is it? Electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. They're blurred out there. But one of them's got a broken string, the classical one, and the electric one's got rusty strings, and they've not been played for a long time. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it used to be a bit of a passion to play the guitar, especially the Spanish classical guitar. Yeah.
But you'll come back whenever you fancy it. Or it's
maybe when I've got nothing else to do, I'll be able to sit down and yeah.
You're busy, man. You're playing the keyboard instead at the moment, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you ever so much for spending time with me, and I'm sure everybody's enjoyed the interview altogether, the spotlight, and people will be probably very, very interested in having a look at different websites. They probably all know them anyway, but if they fancy having a look, they can have a look in the description of the video and have access to all the links and can have a play with different websites.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Jerome. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.